Hi, everybody. It's Pat from the Deep Six Wrestling Podcast, the current Deep Six Predictions champion. Obviously, this is a bit of a different intro. You're more, if you've listened to us before, you're used to hearing like a song or something before we hop in. But due in part to the fact that I've lost our Deep Six Predictions challenge for Revolution, for the next little bit, you'll be hearing my voice opening these shows with cover songs chosen by the rest of the group. And so that's what this is. Just wanted to hop in and let everybody know what you're about to expect, or not what to expect, but what you're going to hear in your ears. So without further ado, here's whatever song I'm singing this week. Your sex life is not swell. You're horny, I can tell. You should just take a ride on my cock. Your future's very clear now. Just get down on your knees now and let me put my penis in your mouth. Beauty school slut. No masturbation days for you, beauty school slut. Bring all your friends, I'll fuck them too. Well, at least you could just spread your legs and maybe take your clothes off. After spending all this time in heaven, I just need to get off. Baby, get moving. Lick on my balls and get me hard. What are you doing? You've got to open up your mouth. Now I've called the shots. Get on my cock. I've really gotta come. Gonna come inside you now. Spread 'em. Don't be shy. Beauty school slut. Down on your knees. Beauty school slut. Down on your knees. Beauty school slut. Down on your knees. Well, with that being said, that is the grand finale. Of course, if you're listening to other podcasts from us, you'll probably hear this all on the week that this is going. But for now, you can always skip over those on future episodes. Anyways, that's the last song I have to do. So if you're tuning into multiple episodes this week, since this is going to be the grand finale, then, I'm sorry. But that was Beauty School Slut from the Grease Porn parody. Anyway, now on with the regular podcast.
And that was a thrilling rendition of Beauty School Slut. Don't know who the singer is because it's a song from a porn parody.
Yeah, I mean it's a real porn video.
Yes.
It's a parody of a movie.
Yeah, so So it's it is a real porn. It is a real porn movie. It is the porn parody of Grease, and instead of Beauty School Dropout, it is Beauty School Slut. And what a song!
Yeah, lyrics which I shall not repeat.
Yeah, but that's a great way to finish up his punishment. Good job. Welcome back to another episode of the Impact Power Hour with your hosts. I'm Ryan.
I'm Angelo.
And yeah, this is the Fallout episode of Hardcore Justice. Hardcore Justice happened last week, along with WrestleMania. If you haven't listened to our WrestleMania reviews, feel free to do so. They are on all of our podcasts.
You gotta say WrestleMania happened the same night as
Oh,
Hardcore
you're right.
Justice.
You're
Impact
right.
Hardcore
Yeah.
Justice was the event.
Yeah. Oh, of
It was
course.
a show opener. It was
Yeah.
the day opener, but that was really the main event of the day.
Yeah. Oh, of course. So if you didn't watch Hardcore Justice, we'll run down the card for you real quick, and talk about some of the things that happened that we thought were good, and some of the things that shouldn't have existed. So we started off the show with the triple threat tag match for with the X Division guys. It was Ace Austin and Madman Fulton versus TJP and his mystery partner Fallah Bahh. Ace Austin's mystery partner was Madman Fulton, so it really wasn't a mystery. And then Josh Alexander shows up, and his mystery partner is Petey fucking Williams.
Yeah, that was the only mystery in
Yeah.
one. So I know he's like still like kind of involved, but still didn't know he had wrestling anymore. So
yeah, this was a really good match. Everybody involved is pretty damn good. Fallah Bahh existed in this match mainly as a comedy spot. Yes, yeah, but everybody else in this match was really good. We did get to see Petey Williams get a Canadian Destroyer on Ace Austin. He also tried to give one to Fallah Bahh. That obviously did not work. But Josh Alexander and Petey Williams pick up the win, and yeah, this was a really fun opener. And I was like, oh man, this show's gonna be great. Next up was Shera versus Hernandez in our Chairly Legal match. And Hernandez dominated almost 90% of this match. And then he looks like he's going to get the win on Shera, and out comes Rohit Raju to cost Hernandez the match, and him and Shera are partnered back up again because Shera wins, and they raise each other's hands. What was the point of separating Shera and Rohit Raju if you were just going to do this?
the way they're doing it, though, we didn't get to see that, so goddamn shame.
Yeah. After this was Doc Gallows with Carl Anderson at ringside versus Black Taurus with Crazy Steve and Rosemary at ringside. This was a match that got announced, I believe, either the day before or the day of. And I was really surprised that they were having Black Taurus go against Gallows solely because Gallows can't lose on the road to Rebellion. And this, this was actually a pretty good match. I was actually shocked that this match was good, solely because Gallows, from like the few solo matches he's had in Impact, has been real shit because he just doesn't look like he cares.
Right.
This Black Taurus looked really good as normal and got to show off against a bigger guy, and Gallows looked like he actually cared and was doing good spots, and yeah, he ends up winning. This was a little bit longer than I expected. It was about 9 minutes, and yeah, got that apparently this was set up weeks ago when the Decay were laughing in the men's locker room when it really was just a hallway. Apparently that's when this match was set up, but they didn't announce the match until literally the day of or the day before. But yeah. After this is where things started to go off the rails. We had Matt Cardona defeating Johnny Swinger in a Great American Bash match that was announced because during one of the Swingers Palace segments, Matt Cardona wanted to get in on the action of betting on people, and Johnny Swinger said, "We only take Kizash here, Daddy. No action figures." And Tommy Dreamer came out and announced this was going to be a match. And obviously Cardona was not going to lose to Johnny fucking Swinger. But it was great to see Johnny Swinger throughout the show. I didn't need an 8-minute match between these two. And it ended when Matt Cardona found one of the crates and looks inside it and just laughs about it, closes it back up, and ends up getting Swinger because Swinger went for the other basket and got brass knuckles. Was too distracted putting them on to counter the Rough Rider. Or the Radio Silence, I'm sorry.
One of the other bad was a Mounttrap.
Yep.
He got his hands on it, so.
And the best of them, which was the first crate they opened, or Swinger opened, was just a picture of Scott Hall.
Right. Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
After this, we had Sami Callihan come out for a promo, and Sam Beal shows up, and he has music and a Titantron now, and he challenges Sami to a match, and this lasted all 4 minutes. Sami beats Sam Beal, hits him with the pile driver yet again. This didn't need to be on the show. This match and the Cardona versus Johnny Swinger match absolutely had zero reason being on the show. After this was Jake Something defeating Brian Myers in the Blind Games match. And this ended because the ref got bumped. Brian Myers took his blindfold off, attacked Jake Something. Jake Something's mask falls off. The ref looks at Jake Something, clearly sees that his mask is off, does not care that his mask is off. Matt Cardona runs down, hits Brian Myers with the crate that he took from Crate American Bash, the unopened crate, and it was a crate full of wrestling action figures. And Jake then, in this confusion, puts his blindfold back on and wins. This was shit. This is not a good match. Blindfold matches don't need to exist.
They're just tough to execute.
Yeah, and the whole idea that like they specifically said before the match that the match is won by either pinfall or submission, or if you take off your blindfold, or if you take off your opponent's blindfold.
Oh.
Brian Myers clearly took off Jake Something's blindfold. The ref clearly saw Jake Something with no blindfold on, but did not say, okay, the match is over, this is disqualification. None of that.
Good point.
After this was our weapons match to determine the number one contender for the Knockouts title. This was interesting because originally they called it a scramble match, but it actually wasn't a scramble match. It was just all 6 women at the same time. And it was...
We weren't sure if it was going to be elimination either, which we realized at the end it wasn't an elimination. It was first pinfall, so...
Yeah, the whole reason it was all confusing is because they kept on calling it a scramble on TV, and the way Impact does their scrambles is it's basically a battle royal. You throw them over the top rope, and then the final 2, it's a pinfall or submission. It's basically a match. That's not how this was. Even though they called it a scramble, it was just all 6 women and 1 pinfall wins. And the combatants were Tenille Dashwood, Alicia Edwards, Havoc, Jordan Grace, Rosemary, and it was supposed to be Susan, but as Susan's making her entrance, then Su Yung makes her entrance, attacks Susan. Susan disappears, and Su Yung is now in this match instead. And so when this all happened, we were like, okay, well, there's 2 people that can win this match. You can have Jordan Grace, and if Jordan Grace wins, then Jazz is probably going to win against Deonna. Or it's going to be Su Yung, and then Deonna wins, and Su Yung versus Deonna happens again, since Deonna's been basically bossing her around and basically made Su Yung disappear in the first place. So there's storylines, implications in that. This match was pretty dreadful for the first half of it. It was absolutely awful. And then the second half of the match got better, but it was still pretty bad overall until maybe like the last minute or two of it. It felt like all of a sudden the match just turned into overdrive. Like they were told, hey, speed it up a bit. And then Tennille Dashwood wins. That came out of nowhere. And the person whose gimmick is I don't want to wrestle is now your number one contender.
Yeah, definitely surprising. So
Yeah. Next up is Deonna Purrazzo versus Jazz, an old school rules title versus career match for the Impact Knockout Championship. I don't know why they called it an old school rules match, because I don't think any weapons got involved here that I can
I don't
remember.
recall. Yeah, no, but
I think
just,
Jazz took
going
out
with the hardcore theme.
yeah, I'm pretty sure Jazz took out a chair at one point, but like I don't think it was used at all.
Okay.
This was a pretty good match. This was much better than their first encounter. And I think that's mainly because, there wasn't interference. It was just a strictly one-on-one match. They were given time. It wasn't a regular TV thing just to further storyline. This was just the completion of a feud that has been going on for months at this point. And I thought it was really good. And we got to see Deonna win in a different way than she normally does. Normally, she wins with either the Venus de Milo, the double Fujiwara armbar, or just a regular Fujiwara armbar. But in this, she whipped out what they're calling the Queen's Gambit pile driver, which isn't the greatest looking pile driver, and I think it might be because Jazz is bigger than Deonna.
True.
But Deonna's not like the biggest person, so seeing her, like, she's not going to be able to hit that on Tennille, I don't think. Tennille's much taller than her, I believe. So
that just means Tennille's winning.
Yeah, or it's going to be a submission.
Right.
But yeah, I thought this was a good match. And great way for Jazz to end her career. She had a very interesting run in Impact, where we thought,
so we thought.
Yeah. And
We'll get into that.
Finally, we have Violent by Design, Eric Young, Diener, Joe Doring, and Rhino versus Team Dreamer, Eddie Edwards, Rich Swann, Willie Mack, and Tommy Dreamer. But oh boy, as they're about to make their entrance, Tommy Dreamer is just sitting on the ground with his head on a chair. And they've got the doctor and Scott there. And they're like, oh, what do we do? Who did this? Violent by Design must have done this. And then Eddie's music starts playing, and Scott says, don't worry, I got somebody coming later. Go get out there. And yeah, the mystery person would be Trey Miguel. Violent by Design ends up winning this match, which makes them look strong. They pin Willie Mack because Willie Mack is only out there to get pinned. Let's be honest. That's Willie Mack in Impact for the last 4 months.
Yeah, at least 4 months.
This was a fine match. It went longer than I expected, but then again, it was
so this is War Game style, right?
Yeah, so this was a War Game styled match, but not War Games at the same time, because obviously it wasn't in a cage. It wasn't 2 rings. It was just 2 people starting in the ring. Originally it said first every 5 minutes somebody comes out, but they definitely moved it up because the match only went 20 minutes, and if you're waiting 5 minutes for everybody, this match would have taken an hour. Right. I believe it ended up getting moved up to 2 minutes. This was a good match for the most part. It was very stereotypical, just beat up hardcore match. Trey Miguel got added to this, and I thought, okay, well, maybe this will make a difference, but Violent by Design, I feel needed this win. Eddie Edwards can take a loss. Rich Swann wasn't involved in the pin. Trey is not really doing anything major, and Willie Mack exists. Violent by Design, considering they I feel like every time they're out there, they don't win very often. As your top heel stable, should be getting big wins, and this was definitely a big win for them.
That's true.
Overall, I gave Hardcore Justice a thumbs in the middle. The good matches were really good. The bad matches were really bad.
Yeah, you just have to think less of it as a pay-per-view. It just was an extension of Impact.
Yeah, just a
that'll make you feel better.
Yeah, just a much longer episode of Impact.
Right. If you went into it being like this is a pay-per-view, you'll be disappointed. If you went into it thinking this is just an extension of the storylines, then you'll be happy.
Yeah. Then we got the news over the weekend that Reno Scum had been released from Impact. Adam Thornstowe put out on Twitter that Reno Scum were done in Impact, thanked Impact. A few Impact people were reaching out, because Impact did not even publicize that they released these individuals. Which, it's weird. But yeah. And then
the road ends for Reno Scum as well as Nevaeh.
Yeah, so Nevaeh is even stranger here because now we're on to the regular episode of Impact. Before the Impact happens, opening match, or the before the Impact match, Nevaeh versus Havoc. In a match that has been set up because Nevaeh turned on Havoc. And they finally ended their tag team. And this was an okay match. It was really slow. Havoc ends up winning after hitting what felt like 5 or 6 boot washes in the corner. Havoc then tried to pin her. Nevaeh kicked out. And then Nevaeh went kind of got on the offensive. Havoc kicked out, and then Havoc hit her finisher. 1, 2, 3. She wins. And then they cut to the before the Impact commentary group of Matthews, John Burton, and Gia Miller. And John Burton or Josh Matthews, one of the two, says, "Well, Havoc might have won this battle, but this war is far from over." And then about 15 minutes later, Nevaeh puts on Twitter, "Thank you for the 1 year. The last year's been fun, Impact. I guess I was the weakest link. Goodbye." She has been released as well, it seems. Very, very strange to have a feud laid out and everything. And then put their big blow-off match on a before the Impact. This was bizarre.
Yeah. Yeah, the placement of the match, especially since everything's taped, you could have put it probably on this Impact Plus show.
Yeah, and if you're gonna release somebody, you probably during the show, basically, probably shouldn't have right after their match saying that this feud is going onwards if they're literally not going to be there anymore. Very strange.
Yeah, miscommunication there on commentary for sure.
Then we get to the main show, and we get a rundown of a few of the matches from Hardcore Justice, and then the main event from last week between Omega and the Good Brothers versus Swan, Eddie, and Willie Mack. You start off this show with Josh Alexander versus TJP. And at the beginning of this match, D'Lo and Matt Striker are running down the card as the match begins. Which I always find strange that Impact decides to run down the card during the match without match graphics or anything. And then once the match is over, they then run down the card again with the match graphics. I've always found that strange. D'Lo
good catch.
Starts us off by talking about how Jazz's retirement is tonight, and he says that since the match got announced between Deonna and Jazz, he knew that Deonna was going to beat Jazz. There was no doubt in his mind that Deonna was going to beat Jazz, but he doesn't want to hear Jazz's retirement speech, because if he doesn't listen to it and if he doesn't hear her say she's retired, then she still isn't retired in his book.
All right.
This was a fantastic match between Josh Alexander and TJP. These guys have amazing chemistry. Whenever they are paired up against each other, I think they've got really good chemistry. Like I said, the triple threat tag match, they had really good chemistry. Everybody really did in that match. And
yeah, this was full of counters. There was full of inside the ring work, outside the ring work on the apron. A lot of different missed moves, the counters, the finishers. It was definitely exciting all around.
Yeah, I think one of the cooler spots, it was right near the end of this match. Josh Alexander gets TJP on the mat and then puts him on his shoulders, then climbs over the ropes, gets onto the top turnbuckle to hit a move. I thought that was really cool. It shows just the power of Josh Alexander. And yeah, this was a really, really strong opener.
I liked the missed frog splash into an ankle lock, slid away into an ankle lock. So yeah, but I mean, yeah, like you said, really strong match all the way through.
Yeah. And yeah, I believe Josh Alexander picks up the win here.
I think you're correct.
For some reason, I just have picks up the win here. Don't write down the person. Very weird. Then we get them running down the card. We go to commercial. We come back and we get Taylor Wilde officially being announced for returning to the Impact Zone, which and that it will happen in April. And considering we have next week, we've got 2 more weeks of Impact in April, and then we also have Rebellion. I'd say that she's probably debuting either next week or at Rebellion. I don't think they're going to wait till the last episode, but who knows? Maybe.
Rebellion seems to be I would say the same bet.
And then they cut to Matt Striker, who just is like, let's get wild. He's very monotone about it. I was very confused because that's not how you hype up somebody. One half of the first ever Knockouts Tag Team Champions. Did you know that, Angelo? Did you know that she is one half of the first ever Knockouts Tag Team Champions?
Who'd she hold it with?
I have no idea. Let me look. I saw it when I looked her up earlier. That was a thing. And I was like, oh, that's cool.
Yeah, no, I would consider her in like that second tier of legendary knockouts in the original TNA. I mean, she was definitely an important part, and her storyline with Awesome Kong was a huge part.
Sarita was who she held it with.
Oh, cool.
And then she...
Yeah, I kind of remember that.
Then she lost it to Awesome Kong and Hamada, who then vacated it, like, right after.
She one time held it with Hamada.
Then the Beautiful People won it, beating Sarita and Taylor Wilde and Angelina Love and Tara. And then Hamada and Taylor Wilde took it off them.
Wow.
There you go.
Very cool.
Yep. So after this, we got Crazy Steve versus Carl Anderson. Again, obviously, this is to continue the storyline of Decay versus the Good Brothers. This was a pretty good match. I wasn't expecting much. I was kind of expecting kind of a squash match. This went through a commercial break. And this is where, when we came back from commercial break, Impact is doing something new. It is very Monday Night Raw / SmackDown-esque, which is they run down what happened during the break and show highlights of what is happening or happened during the break, which they hadn't done before. So that was interesting. They did that every time that there was a match, and then they came back from commercial break. So that was cool. Like I said, this was a very long. It was a longer match than I expected. It was a better match than I expected. It ends up winning. Gallows kind of causes a distraction, which allows Carl Anderson to his finisher 1, 2, 3, and yeah. This feud isn't over because they would announce at the end of the show that next week we get the Good Brothers versus Crazy Steve and Black Taurus, which
I guess it makes sense to have the tag match now, even though like they usually when you like do that where you have the tag match as the third match, you trade victories. But I guess you don't want the Good Brothers to look bad at all
because they're not going to lose to Black Taurus and Crazy Steve in the tag match.
Definitely
3 days before your big match at Rebellion.
That'd be quite the swerve.
So we go to Swingers Palace, which thankfully is not gone.
Back.
No more blackjack. It is roulette. Nobody's placing any bets apparently because I don't think anybody knows how to play roulette in this building.
Yeah, Alicia did not seem very confident.
Yeah, the segment starts with Bravo just saying, and that's it, and Alicia saying, "Man, I never win this game." And then Ace Austin shows up and he says, "Oh, what are we playing here?" And Alicia says, "I think I'm going to take another shot at this." And Ace Austin says, "Well, I want a shot at you."
Yeah. Oof.
And Ace Austin then asks Bravo how's the action looking for this week for Rebellion. Bravo says, "You are not the favorite." And Ace Austin says, "Who is?" And then TJP shows up, and TJP says, "Hey, Bravo, who's looking like the favorite? Because I've beaten Ace Austin not once, not dose, but trace times." And Bravo says, "Yeah, you did, and that's why you're the favorite, TJP." And then Josh Alexander shows up, and he's like, "But I just beat TJP, so shouldn't my odds be better?" And he says, "No, because TJP's beaten the champ 3 times." And Josh Alexander says, "Well, I think I've got something. My odds man tells me something different." And out comes Petey Williams.
Little Petey
Pump to go and do the Scott Steiner math promo. Ladies and gentlemen, Swingers Palace is peaked.
Yeah, it can't get any better than that. Having Little Petey Pump return basically just to have one match and then do the Scott Steiner promo.
Alicia Edwards' mouth was wide open for this, for no apparent reason.
All the Swingerella, she was like absolutely flabbergasted, and the Swingerellas, they panned to them and they were shocked.
And then they panned to Johnny Swinger, who was just like kind of laughing it up, because that's what Johnny Swinger does.
And luckily for us Twitch fans, we weren't so shocked since they show the Scott Steiner promo at least once a week on the Twitch stream, sometimes twice.
Absolutely.
So we're well prepared.
And then Josh Alexander, once it's done and Petey leaves, Josh Alexander says, "I like my odds," and leaves. And then that pans to Johnny Bravo, who says, "Just call me the $1 million swing man because everybody's got a price, daddy." Love it. I hope this implies that he has rigged this match as well. I hope all of Rebellion is just rigged because people keep on putting money down.
Jeez.
That's what I hope ends up happening. After this, we have Eddie Edwards and Willie Mack in the ring. And I assumed that this was just going to be a promo for both of these guys. Willie Mack does not say a word. Eddie Edwards just calls out Violent by Design for taking out Swinger. Violent by Design come out. Eric Young says, "You've known me for a long time, Eddie. You know that I don't lie. I said that we were going to beat you guys at Hardcore Justice. We did that. I told you guys that we were going to take out. I was going to take out Rich Swann. I did that. But look at me, Eddie. as I look at you in your eyes, and I say from the bottom of my heart, I did not take out Tommy Dreamer. That's not what we do. And Eddie said,
That is so surprising.
I was surprised. And Eddie says, you know what? I don't care if you didn't take him out. Let's just come on in. Let's fight. And so all four Violent by Design get up on the ring, and then we got James Storm's music playing. James Storm, Chris Sabin come out, make the save. They run off Violent by Design. And as they're leaving, James Storm grabs the mic and says, how about we have a big old match? If you guys aren't scared, us four, you four at Rebellion. Which they then made official at the end of the night, which is weird because obviously they're not going to tell us that Eric Young is injured, even though Eric Young has already told us that he is injured and is having surgery on his ACL.
Well, it seems like this episode is part of the tapings of the pay-per-view, everything else. So it's still like, he probably doesn't even know he's there.
But we obviously, the Rebellion match is going to have to be changed. Since the Rebellion show is not taped to any knowledge of anybody. Normally their pay-per-views are live. It's just the other shows that are not. The Impact Plus shows.
Gotcha.
Next week we do know is the Eric Young versus Eddie Edwards match, which apparently, according to Eric Young, was the last match they taped before he had to go away because of the injury. It was just too much. He says that this match was the hardest to do because he had basically known something was wrong, but he wanted to get through the entire taping. And him and Eddie wrestled for over 20 minutes with him basically on one leg. So let's see how that works next week.
Yeah.
After this, Deonna and Susan are heading towards the ring for Jazz's retirement ceremony, and Scott D'Amore shows up and is like, hey, fancy seeing you guys here, and you're going towards the ring where her Jazz is having her ceremony. And they said, yeah, we want to see her off, basically. Scott says, okay.
Well, they didn't even see that at all, right? They actually didn't say that they were going to the ring at all. Scott just basically made sure they turned around.
That's the weird thing, because Deonna says, yes, we are going there. And then Scott says, okay, you can go there, but just don't interrupt because there'll be consequences, stuff like that. And Deonna said, we weren't even thinking about ruining it or interrupting it. And then they walked the opposite way.
Right, and they walked away. Yeah.
After this, we get All About Me, starring Tennille Dashwood and Caleb with a K as the guests. And
doesn't that set look familiar?
Oh, absolutely. Right? It is the set for Locker Room Talk. So how this show apparently is going to work is Tennille and Caleb are the co-guests of this show every week. And they're going to have a guest host show up and ask questions. And the first guest is Gia Miller, who basically just asks the question of, well, how did you feel about, and all of a sudden she cuts Gia off and is like, oh, how did it feel winning? I knew I was going to win, blah, blah, blah. And how I'm getting prepped for the match against Deonna. I've faced Deonna outside of Impact Wrestling numerous times, and every time I've come up as the winner, and it's not going to be any different. Deonna doesn't know how to beat me. And then highlights that everybody always talks about how, the Impact has always been like a place for women. Wrestling has always held women's wrestling to a higher standard. But if you know anything about me, I kickstarted the women's revolution, obviously referring to her time in WWE, where she really was one of the highlights of the NXT system and how NXT really treated women's wrestling. So it was interesting to see her highlight that. She's often one of the forgotten females in the WWE women's revolution system, where she really, her, Paige, Sasha, Bayley, Charlotte, and Becky really were like the front forerunners for showing off how NXT and eventually the main roster would actually treat women's wrestling in WWE. So it was good to see her highlight that.
Yeah. To be fair, I really only remember her for her
Yes.
Emma bits with
Yes.
Santino.
I feel like there's three things that people remember Emma from in WWE. It is the goofy Emma bits with Santino, the Emelina gimmick that went on that had promos for I believe 2 months. She came out and was like, "No, I'm not actually going to do this." And I feel like if you watched NXT, and you watched after the first NXT Brooklyn show, they had the taped show, NXT beforehand that me, Pat, Sam, Rob, and Angela were a part of. We were at this show. Angela fell asleep during it, but Emma, somehow I don't remember who she pinned. It was either Becky or Charlotte. She pinned, but she wasn't supposed to do. It was just like a regular move, and they didn't kick out of it. And then it just panned to all three of them at different points, and all three of them were very confused on what just happened, and they kept it in the show. And yeah, those are the three things I remember Emma from. And then if you want to go even further, it's probably the fact that she got fired after less than 12. I believe it was like less than 12 hours after there was a report that she stole something from a Walmart. It was like a iPad case. And then it came out that she didn't steal it. It just didn't, like, there's video footage of it, and it was just like she did a self-checkout, and it just, like, wouldn't register or whatever. And then WWE rehired her, like, a few days later. Those are, like, the four WWE moments of Emma's career that if you didn't watch NXT religiously, you probably don't remember. After this, we have Jazz's retirement. Jazz puts over Deonna, calling her the present and the future of women's wrestling. She puts over how Impact really has embraced her, that she, in her over 20 years of in the wrestling business, she had never worked for this company and never even really thought about even coming here. But then Jordan put in a call for her, and she had to say yes, and she wouldn't have it any other way going out like this, and then puts over Jordan for even thinking about her for the tag tournament, thanking her for supporting her through the whole run, and saying that there's big things for you in the future. And then Fire and Flava show up, interrupt Jazz, saying that it's about time for you to head to the retirement home with the other old wrestlers. Jordan gets the mic and claims that she didn't invite Fire and Flava to this retirement ceremony because she knew that there would be problems because you talk too much. And then a ref just shows up. Meanwhile, I should also point out that there's nobody out here for this retirement ceremony, by the way. So it seems like Jordan didn't invite anybody to this retirement ceremony. A ref shows up, says, Scott has announced that you guys are having a match. Get in the ring. Nobody is dressed in ring gear, and this is the quickest match ever. Just a bunch of people missing moves. And then Jazz hits her finisher 1, 2, 3 on... I believe it was Kiera. It might have been yeah.
I think it was Kiera. But it was Kiera because Tasha tagged out. It was Kiera. But then after this match ends, they just continued the speech, like as I was saying, and like it never happened.
Yes,
like
it never needed to happen. Or that should have been the
ridiculous
ending of it. This is silly. But then as Jazz is finishing it up, the rest of the locker room comes out, surrounds the ring. Tommy gets in the on the apron with her, who she shouts out, and then she also shouts out one other individual. Angela, who was that other individual?
It was clothed Gail Kim.
Clothed Gail Kim. Yep.
She didn't shout
No,
out the
she
topless
didn't.
Gail Kim.
Interesting.
No.
Gail Kim out there in a mask. She's literally the only one in a mask in this segment.
Yeah.
I have no
What did
idea.
she
She
do for
must be like a
Impact?
trainer or a coach for the women's division. She's got to be. That's the
Okay.
only thing I can think of.
Yeah.
Because it's like it feels like she's always there for like big moments with the women's division. Like when they had the Knockouts titles shown, her and Madison Rayne were there to present them for this. And yeah, I feel like there's another thing that she was there for since we've watched, but I don't remember. Yeah, she does.
She tweets a lot about Impact, so it's like it's clear that she was either watching the product or it's like just working there.
Also, they just kept on panning to Johnny Swinger, who just kept on laughing throughout the thing. So yeah.
Not one of the better retirement
absolutely
ceremonies,
not,
for sure.
It got weirder because after this we go backstage and Scott is yelling at Fire and Flava, who are yelling back at him. And he announces that Jazz and Jordan now have a title shot at Rebellion for the tag titles, even though Jazz has just minutes before said that she is done. And then Jazz and Jordan walk in, and Scott tells them the news, and Jazz is like, well, that's great, but like, I'm staying retired. Like, I'm staying true to my word.
Yeah, so at least she honors it.
She does say that she will have a special partner picked out for Jordan. So we'll either get that next week or we'll just find out at Rebellion.
So there's a good chance this person's name rhymes with ODB.
I think so. I know Pat says it's probably going to be Taylor Wilde, which, sure, Taylor Wilde can win her third tag team title with 3 different partners.
Yeah, I guess Taylor Wilde makes sense in this spot, but
yeah, ODB still hasn't retired, man.
ODB will never retire because she never had that much in-ring ability to begin with, so nothing's changed. You're right.
No, I think it's going to be ODB dressed as Suicide Angelo, just for you.
Yeah. I will stop watching Impact if ODB dresses
No,
up
you
as
said
Suicide,
over the weekend that you'd be fine with Suicide coming back if it was just clearly not like somebody dressed, like it was clearly somebody dressed as Suicide and they weren't even trying. Because ODB would not be trying.
Yeah,
it would just be the mask, and that's it.
Yeah, that's what like the Johnny Swinger one, like when he did it last year, it was funny because it's like, okay, clearly it's not, someone portraying Suicide. It's Johnny Swinger because he's got his chest out, So
after this, we had our pick your poison matches. So Brian Myers comes out, then Matt Cardona comes out to announce who he chose for Brian Myers' opponent, and it is Jake something. This match lasted all of maybe 3 minutes.
Yeah, it was. Yeah,
Brian Myers wins, and then he gets on the mic and says, "Oh, it's real hard to see out of this eye patch, but it's gonna be even harder when you to see in the dark." And Sami Callihan is who he has chosen for Matt Cardona's opponent. This was not a short match. Callihan attacks him, and then we go right into commercial. Then we come back, and the match has officially begun. This was a pretty strong match. I didn't expect it to go this long. I thought it probably went a little too long, solely because there's no story between Brian Myers and Sami Callihan. And if you don't like Sami Callihan's wrestling style, then you probably didn't like this match because it was a basic Sami Callihan match, just with Matt Cardona infused into it. I thought this was a really strong match, as I said. I enjoyed it solely because I do like Sami Callihan's style, and Matt Cardona's style is perfectly fine with me. It was just a bit long, and then I realized that the reason it was so long is because this was the main event, basically.
Yeah, right. It was weird because just the way the timing of the show and what they had for the actual main event.
Yeah, this was a good, solid piece of work. I was surprised. Like when this happened, I was like, okay, well, Sammy can take a loss. Cardona can't really, because
the finish was definitely surprising, and
yeah.
albeit be a screwy finish.
But then I understand now why Sammy couldn't really take a loss. And that is because of what happened after this. But Sammy ends up getting the win here after pushing the ref into Cardona, and then poking Cardona's eye and hitting him with the package pile driver. And then it zooms in on Sammy's finger, which apparently has just been cut open, and like his nail has been broken in half, basically. And he starts picking at it and then flicks it.
Yeah.
It's just gushing blood out of it.
Disgusting. Yeah.
And then Sammy gets on the mic and calls out Trey Miguel. Says, Trey, I want you to come out here. Trey comes out. Is not very happy with Sammy because, of course, he's not happy with Sammy. He's never happy with Sammy. And Sammy congratulates him on being in the main event at Hardcore Justice. He said that you showed a lot of passion, and that's what I've been asking for. And it felt really good to tag with you last week because you got to release that rage, and I got to see up close that you do actually have that passion. You just need to have somebody help bring it out. And I want you to shake my hand right here, right now, and align with me, and let's be partners. And Trey says, absolutely not. With no respect given, I would never partner with you in a million years. And Sammy says, but you should, because who do you think gave you that main event spot? If it wasn't for me, Sami Callihan, Tommy Dreamer wouldn't have been taken out of that match. And Trey snaps at this and just starts attacking Sammy, and Sammy just says, all right, fuck it. Grabs a chair from outside, hits Trey square in the head. Then Trey rolls into the middle of the ring. Sammy tosses the chair, and it somehow hits Trey square in the head again off the throw, which sucks for him. And then Sammy sets the chair up like a normal chair and kind of smashes Trey right on top of it. And he has laid out Trey. And then as Sammy leaves, Trey gets up. Sammy and him lock eyes. Sammy winks at him, and he leaves. He's very impressed, he seems, with Trey's resiliency. And we get the announcement that at Rebellion, we have Trey Miguel versus Sami Callihan in a last man standing match. And honestly, that should be extremely good. They have really strong chemistry. They've worked together for years. I am all for it.
Yeah, this is definitely going to be a good match.
After this, we get a rundown of next week's card and the new announced matches for Rebellion. Next week's matches are, as I said earlier, Eddie Edwards versus Eric Young, Black Taurus and Crazy Steve versus the Good Brothers, and we also have the announcement of the last man standing match. Brian Myers versus Matt Cardona, Kenny Omega versus Swan, Deanna versus Tennille, and Fire and Flava versus Jordan and a mystery partner picked by Jazz. Then we get a little FinJuice promo over in Japan, talking about what they've done on their tour of Japan, talking about how David Finlay made it to the semifinals of the New Japan Cup, talking about all their accomplishments in Japan. If you didn't know already, Gallows and Anderson are always talking about how they won how they won a World Tag League. Juice Robinson points out they've won a World Tag League. Talking about how they've won the IWGP tag titles, heavyweight tag titles. They've won them as well, and how the Good Brothers had the Impact titles, but now the new number one champions in the world are FinJuice, which I thought was interesting that they claim to be the number one tag team in the world if they're in a company that they don't have the other titles for. So interesting, but yeah. I'm looking forward to this match, FinJuice and Good Brothers. And then we cut back, and Matt fucking Striker says, "Is it just me, or is it really unnerving that these tag titles are with FinJuice?" And FinJuice are baby faces.
Yeah.
They are beloved baby faces. Like they are not dastardly heels. They're not like doing.
Well, I mean, sure, they're baby faces in New Japan. Have they been established as
the Good Brothers
in
are
Impact?
heels. Yeah.
The Good Brothers are heel, yes, but I mean, Matt Striker's playing off the concept of they won the titles and left. So sure, I mean, it's hard to read.
And then we get our press conference. Our press conference is representing AEW because Kenny and Don are missing. It is Jerry Lynn and Tony Khan, and then representing Impact, it is. It is Mr. Rich Swann, the Unified Champion, and Scott D'Amore. And this is being moderated by the greatest moderator of all time, Joshua Matthews. So they start this off by throwing it to questions from the media. And I was like, okay, so this could be a who's who of who these guys are. Like maybe it'll be like how we've had the AEW press conferences where they got like big names, and I didn't recognize the two people that they brought on, and then they had, I believe, I think they had a written down question from, I believe, somebody from Mike Johnson of PWI, I believe, who probably asked the only question that really mattered, which shout out to Pat because he's been talking about this for what feels like weeks. He's like, oh, this is going to be a screwy finish. It's going to be like a double count out. Nobody's going to win. Both champions are going to stay the same. And that's the question he asks is, can both Tony and Scott confirm that whoever has the championships at the end of the night will be full-time for both companies? They both said yes. The other one is, will there be a definitive winner? And how can you make sure that? And Tony Khan brings up that AEW has never had a title match end in confusion of who won, and that he and Scott have talked about it, and that this match will feature AEW rules and an AEW official. And Scott has agreed to this, and we feel like that is the best way to go forward for this match, since we don't have screwy finishes or confusing finishes for the titles. Which, okay, that's fine. I don't know how that really guarantees it. But then Scott gets it. Yeah. And Scott points out that, yes, like nobody wants a confusing finish. Nobody wants it to be aired in controversy. We want to make sure that somebody walks out as the better champion, the best champion in all of North America, because this is basically both companies, two major companies in North America, coming together and saying that we are going to work together, is opening the doors for more working relationships, and we want to do this by having the titles on and seeing which one of our champions is the best to represent both companies, which I thought was very strong wording by these guys. It definitely feels like they know that there's people talking about it, that this is going to be this could be a screwy finish, and they don't want people to think that that's going to happen. I feel a little more comfortable saying that there's going to be a definitive winner in this. Like when Pat brought it up,
right,
saying that like there's a reason AEW isn't having Swan and them on AEWs because they don't care about this. I do think that they are going to have a definitive winner. I do think Kenny Omega is going to win both titles. And yeah, I do think that it does help again that like I think the big complaint is like, oh, how are you going to make sure that like you can balance both schedules? Impact is taped like months in advance, so you can show up for 3 days of work in a row and knock out a month of stuff.
Yeah, comparing this to Luthez and Bruno Sammartino back in the day, trying to have this unifying
I did like
match. That's pretty
Callis
funny.
and Omega finally show up and talk about how they get asked a single question, and Don says, I've been out here for listening to all these questions that don't matter. It's like, no, you haven't. This is the first question you listen to. By God. But he just basically says the Swan keeps on wanting to forget that I have great respect for him, and he has great respect for me. I am the one who kept his head up after his injuries. I was the one to make sure that he was back in Impact once he was fully healed. I gave him a title shot right away. He won that title once he could. And I also made sure that he knew that he was welcomed immediately into the Impact family once he first signed with us. But Kenny is better than Rich Swann, blah, blah, blah. And also goes on to credit himself with creating the Tokyo Dome shows of the last few years and bringing Chris Jericho to Japan. And yeah, this was a good segue into Kenny, who says, I'm used to these type of professional press conferences, dressed up, talking up the big matches. But who isn't? Rich Swann. Rich Swann is never in these big spotlight matches, and that's because he doesn't deserve to. And as I've been watching the product, as I've been in the ring with Rich, I've noticed that he doesn't belong in my league. He doesn't belong anywhere close to me. He's not ready for a match like this. He's not ready for a one-on-one match with me. But let the best man win. And then he slaps Rich across the face, and then they start brawling, and that's how the show ends. I thought this was a really strong episode. I think this really contradicts what we talked about last week about how it seemed like after the main event that Kenny kept on locking eyes with Rich, and it seems like he was gaining a little bit more respect for Rich. And realizing, okay, well, maybe I am in for a tougher match because Rich took me to the limit, made me have to tag out to Carl, who ended up eating the pin last week. So it seemed like, okay, that's where they're going. Nope, we're going complete opposite. Kenny just being nope, I have no respect for you. I don't think you're good. I don't think you're on my level.
Yeah. That was a brutal verbal beating.
This was probably one of Kenny's best promos since he's gone full heel in either AEW or Impact. He felt more confident. He didn't feel cringy. It just felt real natural coming off the tongue. And I really this is the type of Kenny that I enjoy more. It felt more like his New Japan self, but also just more confident and understanding how to do it. Obviously, I'm sure this was this might have been taped numerous times, might have had multiple takes. I don't know, but it just felt like he was more comfortable with what was going on, which felt really good. Overall, I'd give this a thumbs up.
And I would definitely agree. I give this episode a thumbs up. It picked up well from the Impact
Yeah.
Plus show, and helps lead us to
So
Rebellion.
that is going to be it for us here next week. You'll have Wednesday, Pat and it'll be Pat on the AEW Dynamite review. I'm just going to say a bunch of D words there. I don't think Joey's on it next week. And then me and you back for Impact. And we'll probably have an Impact prediction show next week too, because it's Rebellion and we are predicting Impact Wrestling Rebellion for the Deep Six Championship. So I don't know who's going to be involved in it, but I know me, you, and Pat will.
Maybe.
And Joey. Yeah. Maybe we've got
maybe
this.
I'll have an edge. Yeah. And lastly, just to close of the show, I know we talked a little earlier before the show started, but we could mention some of the releases today. I think we just want to focus on two of them. Two former Impact legends, one being Samoa Joe and one being Mickie James, that were both released today from their WWE contracts. Is there anything specific, Ryan, that you would want to go into
see
with
where
those
two go? The other one I mentioned is Chelsea Green, formerly known as Laurel Van Ness in Impact. Interesting that once she was released, Dixie Carter and Gail Kim have both put her over. And said, hope to see her soon on our TVs again, with Chelsea retweeting them and thanking them for all that they've done to help her along the way, and basically saying anything I can do to help in the future, I am up for it. Deanna retweeting it and saying, posting a bunch of her and Chelsea's tag matches and stuff from NXT. So highlighting that. But Samoa Joe, I think, is bizarre that he got released, because he seemed very happy in WWE for the most part. Like, I understand that he wants to wrestle, and it seems like WWE does not want to let him wrestle again. I know people are speculating that the reason he got released is because they want him as a commentator who's going to make less money. Because he's still on his WWE contract.
Yeah, he's probably making
he probably doesn't want to do that, but he also doesn't want to do that because he probably still wants to wrestle, since he's been very vocal about it.
And he can make the money.
Yeah,
and he can make the money elsewhere. So that's why he didn't want to settle just to become a commentator at this stage of his career. And then I guess lastly, Mickie James, unfortunately was labeled as a legend. So, for better or for worse. So she really wasn't given television time in a really long time to wrestle. So she still probably would want to wrestle. So I presume she gets scooped by AEW almost instantaneously after 90 days. So, but for her and for Samoa Joe, this is a good second chance, or third or fourth chance, to really revitalize their careers and go out with a bang.
Interesting fact, Mickie James's last one singles match that was televised apparently was on September 21st. Apparently it was her versus Zelina Vega in a number one contendership match for the Raw Women's title. I don't remember that match at all. And then the week beforehand, I do remember this, was Mickie James. It was versus Asuka for the title. Where it was a really silly, screwy finish. The referee thought Mickie tapped, but she clearly didn't. And they just called the match, and that's why Mickie was given another shot for the number one contenders match. And then, apparently, I don't remember it, but apparently she was in the Royal Rumble this year. I don't remember her at all in the Royal Rumble. Yeah.
I don't recall, but it makes sense.
Yeah, she had so she wrestled June 1st, 2019, it looks like. Unless this is June 1st, 2019. And then didn't wrestle again until August 13th, 2020. And she lost to Natalya via countout on Raw. Then she beat Lana. Then her and Asuka beat Lana and Natalya. Then she lost to Asuka in that title match. Then she lost to Zelina. Then disappeared for 3.5 months, or 4 months. I'm sorry, and showed up at the Royal Rumble, and then disappeared for 4 months and got released. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, she could definitely do a lot better somewhere else. I presume AEW doesn't let her get into any negotiations anywhere else. I'm sure
Yeah,
they're
that's
gonna
definitely the
blow
interesting
her out
thing.
of the water with money.
She
so.
100% has the world as her oyster at this point, like where she can go, where she could go to Impact and be like a top star in Impact again. She could go to NWA and be with her husband Magnus, aka Nick Aldis, and they can be partnered up, do whatever if that's what she wants. Or she could go to AEW and be a top star in AEW. She's can do basically anything at this point in her career. Samoa Joe, I think the one question everybody's going to ask is the health. This is somebody who we know has had issues with his health. His last match was February 10th, 2020, where he lost to AOP, who have been released, Murphy, and Seth Rollins in a match where it was him, Kevin Owens, and the Viking Raiders on Raw. He has been out the entire pandemic, mostly doing commentating stuff, and the reason that is because apparently he got a concussion going through a table for a WWE Raw commercial. He's had multiple concussions since being in WWE, and that's probably the one question everybody's going to have is, can he get cleared? He has said before, apparently on Twitter and stuff, that he was cleared by his doctors. It was just WWE hadn't cleared him yet. And it feels like it's another one of those Daniel Bryan Christian situations where WWE is very careful about concussions and who they let back. So I think AEW is a great spot for Joe.
Yeah, I personally think he's probably going to freelance for most of the rest of his career just because of those injury history, and he might be better suited than just one-off events in like New Japan, maybe going to AEW for one quick, number one contender run or showing up somewhere else. Yeah, I don't think he's maybe built to be a long-term answer to any company right now.
AEW or Impact could offer Joe compared to like somewhere else is like you're not going to have to do silly commercials that could get you injured. Like AEW doesn't have pre-recorded commercials.
Yeah, that's true.
Where you're doing dangerous spots or going through tables and stuff like that. Impact doesn't really have commercials. And I feel like I think the one downside you're going to have is that there's going to be the people that are going to continuously say that AEW's concussion protocol is very questionable, if they even have one, because that's arisen a few times, namely the Matt Hardy, Sammy Guevara match, where Matt Hardy 100% got a concussion. There's no doubt in anybody's mind that man, when he jumped off the damn forklift and landed square on the concrete, didn't know where he was, had his eyes glazed over, had a concussion, was taken off TV for basically a month because he probably had a concussion. Apparently, there's been multiple people on tape shows that have been pulled because of injuries, doing head injuries. But AEW hasn't made an announcement or anything like that saying like, oh, it was a concussion or anything. They haven't. They've been very silent with head injuries, and I think that's always going to be a question, especially in the early years of this company. That like they might be a little reckless with that, and maybe they're like, okay, we will clear Samoa Joe. We've cleared Christian. We can clear Samoa Joe, but just got to be wary about that and hope for the best. I think Joe can be a star wherever he goes, as long as he can stay healthy. And I do think I think that
Yep.
like with a reduced
the
schedule
story.
of we're not doing house shows every day of the week, you can stay healthy during that. Yeah.
It would be a good fit in that sense.
Other than that, maybe there'll be more releases, unfortunately, in the coming days. But with that, we are going to head off. Thank you guys. And again, remember, check us out next week, Wednesdays, Thursday, and we'll have a prediction show either Friday or Saturday of next week, most likely. Check out our Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. Links are in the description of the episode, as well as all the different places to listen to the podcast. Feel free to subscribe, share us, and give us a rating or review. It's free, doesn't take much time, and it really helps us out in the long run. So thank you guys, and we will see you next week.